Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Today Television. I'm Sakshi Batra and this is Market Today. Well, this is where we've come back after days of break and a truncated week at that. In that Nifty breaking the 7-day losing streak was definitely a huge sigh of relief. You did see the Nifty ending Tuesday on about a 0.3% higher in trade at 23,518. Although this was after profits were taken off largely throughout the course of the day, because at one point in time on Tuesday we did see the markets inching higher by over 1.5% as well as far as the benchmark indices are concerned. The whole day was bright and shiny, but towards the end, before going into the holiday, profits were definitely taken off as well. But definitely what we have seen is that the longest losing streak of 7 days on the Nifty in over 20 months was broken on Tuesday. Now, when we really look at in today's trading session, all eyes will be on how the global markets have been shaping up in terms of cues. There'll be several pockets of news flows that will be impacting stocks and sectors as well. And of course, we will be looking at the weekly expiry on the Nifty too. So the global markets overnight in the US, they did show us that the S&P 500 closed flat on Wednesday. The Nasdaq dipped about 0.1% in trade. The S&P index also closed flat, and the Dow Jones rose about 0.3% in trade as well. This is despite Nvidia, one of the tech majors, posting a 94% year-on-year revenue increase in the third quarter at $35 billion. However, this marked a consecutive slowdown in growth compared to prior 3 quarters, where revenue surged by 122% and 262% and 265% respectively. Remember, the Asia-Pacific margins are Asia-Pacific markets right after US. They largely declined on Thursday morning. This is as investors closely monitored the regional tech shares after Nvidia's better than expected earnings report, and of course the geopolitical tensions which have been ripe as well. So what we've seen is that the ASX 200 bucked up the trend, edging up about 0.1% in trade as well, and the rest of the markets also showing up in trade. Well, the GIFT Nifty futures were trading about 92 points higher in trade. That's now indicating a positive chart for the Indian markets at 23,627 odd levels. So a positive start is what you could expect today. As far as the overseas investors are concerned, remember they remain net sellers of the Indian equities for 36th consecutive session on Tuesday, while the domestic institution investors stayed net buyers. FPI sold stocks worth about 3,411 crores. And of course, we did see the domestic institutional investors mopping up stocks worth about 2,783 odd crore rupees as well. Now, as of today, there'll be a whole host of things that you should be really looking at. Investors will closely watch up the Adani Group stocks. There is news flow there, and the implementation of the new F&O rules will kickstart the NTPC Green Energy IPO Day 2, coupled with the Maharashtra Assembly election developments, and of course the Nifty expiry, like I pointed out as well. But let's welcome our guest on board, Mr. Devin Choksi, the MD of DR Choksi Finserv, to get us an understanding of how is he really looking at the market setup right now. Warm welcome to you, sir, and thank you so much for taking the time out. It's always a pleasure to host you on Business Today. First up, do tell us, how are you really looking at the market setup right now? We did see those signs of bounce back returning to the D Street on Tuesday, but not before long. We did see profits taken off. So do we see these interim signs as signs of reversal coming in, or they are just like dead cat bounce and we need to be prepared for more volatility because of both the macro as well as micro developments that are now going to be shaping up the market, sir?
Yes, good morning, Sakshi. Well, I think let's take into account few developments which are happening, which will possibly decide the course of the market. On one side, I think we have got a sharp fall in the market, with many mid caps and small caps have already gone below 50% from their peak levels. So a sharp correction has already come. Having said that, I think the fourth has gone, and I think that still the premium valuation has to really get justified with the working of the company or the growth in the earnings of the company. For the large cap companies, the fall has not been as sharp as I think the mid cap and small caps, but there has been a fall. So to a greater extent, I think the fall has happened more because of, I think, the variety of reasons, including some of the larger funds taking out money from India, etc., etc. Now, this event is already over. This event is past now. More or less, I think the conclusion is that the veracity of the fall that one has seen in October until November now, I think is more or less it's taken care of now with the kind of a slowdown in the withdrawal process or slowdown in the fall in the stock prices. So one can well argue that from here on, the markets are expected to stabilize, and I think the fall is protected to a greater extent. So putting my back on the job, I would probably say 23,200 on Nifty could possibly act as a solid block support level. If for some reason if it has to fall, then somewhere around 22,900 could be I think another one where market is expected to take support. But when the recovery is taking place, which I believe for any reason, and which we will count I think couple of reasons in a while, I think could lead the Nifty to 24,700 or 24,500. This is the possible range I think that we are talking about. Now, what could be the trigger points? The one trigger point could be the elections in the states are now out. Probably by Saturday we will know the verdict. So obviously, I think by Saturday you would know what exactly is the election outcome is. And should BJP-led government continue to operate in both the state, December, you are going to have the meeting for the rate reduction by the RBI, interest rate reduction by the RBI. Should that outcome be positive, again, I think the market will decide the course on an upside. And the third one, I think, which is already decided, which is your derivative contracts. From the next month contract, I think the contract size has increased. So to a greater extent, I think that will probably cause a sharp rise in the volume in derivative market, which up till now has been experienced to a certain extent. Maybe some part of the business might get shifted to the bar trading, but that's a different issue. I believe that I think the markets are likely to take cues from the outcome of these three measures that we have basically discussed in a while now. But most certainly, I think the market is now likely to trade in the range of 23,200 to 24,700. That is what I think we would like to look at for at least next 1.5 months.
Mr. Choksi, the group that will be in focus today is the Adani group again. So I wanted to understand, how should one really look at the developments now which are taking place? Of course, US over their role in an alleged multi-billion-dollar bribery and fraud scheme, according to the US prosecutors. Now, Gautam Adani has been charged in this in the US for bribes worth about $265 million to Indian government officials. And of course, this was to obtain contracts expected to yield about $2 billion of profits over the next 2 years and develop India's largest solar power project as well. This has been what the prosecutors have mentioned. They've also mentioned that Adani and the other executives at Adani Green Energy, former CEO V. Jain, has raised more than $3 billion in loans and bonds by hiding their corruption from lenders and investors. So, this is again, the impediment that's coming in for the group right after they are slowly and gradually coming out of Hindenburg too as well. How are you really looking at this development, and how should an average investor be really looking at the group stocks now, sir?
Sakshi, I think Hindenburg is not out of the way. Let's put one line clearly. If they fail in India, and they'll make desperate attempts to go in any part of the world to make their case for whatever they have done. So I think if they are still not out of there, and I think one can strongly believe that whatever the outcome of US SEC and the court out there is also thanks to whatever Hindenburg has done. So it's unfortunate that I think such kind of malpractices are going unnoticed, and unfortunate that I think it results into the allegations and destruction of wealth. Maybe I think separate subject to discuss altogether. Now the second part I think which one should be reviewing, in which part of the world bribing is not accepted. I don't understand. I think why we should be so worried about I think the bribing part. In US itself, I think the bribing is named as lobbying. So I think they have got agents, they have got lobbying, they have got all kind of means available to them. They do the bribing. So from that perspective, too, one should not be getting unduly worried about it. Yes, I
Okay.
do agree that I think there are certain things which one needs to look into, and that is what the job of the regulator and the courts will be. Let them look into it. I think their own business to get into that part. At least at this point of time, till it is proven.
Okay, well, got that. So that's how one should be really looking at this development and not get unduly worried at this point in time. That should be some sense of a relief coming into all the investors who've been holding some of these stocks over this long-term consolidation that has played out in the group stocks. And we'll continue to get you all the developments on that front, viewers, throughout the course of the day as well. But let's also discuss some of the other parts in the markets that are moving. IPO space has been hotting up. NTPC Green is the second day of running in the IPO space. How are you looking at this opportunity? I mean, we've spoken to the management also, and they are pretty confident of how this could build on to what NTPC has done to the power sector in India and what NTPC Green really plans to do in the renewable energy space going forward from here, especially in the long term, 5-10 years down the line. They have massive plans right there and pretty confident of executing all those orders that are coming in. Of course, there are valuation concerns that have been brought in by a lot of brokerage houses. You tell us, sir, how are you looking at this as an opportunity for a retail investor out there?
Retail investors, I'm not too sure because retail investors don't have the appetite to hold the investment for 10 years. And any business of capital intensive nature like the power generation, now in this case, I think through the renewable power generation activity that they are bringing up, I think that business will require at least 10 years horizon for the retail investor or for that matter any investor to hold that stock in the portfolio. The fundamentals of the company will shape up gradually because it's a power generation activity. You are basically building the power generation capacity, and that will result into generating the revenue and the profits for the company once the investment plan is over. But in that point of time, I think it's a substantial amount of investment that they would be having. So, in my viewpoint, retail investors, unless they have the patience, unless they want to hold it for 10 years, it's not a good idea at all. Probably, I think the institutional investors like insurance funds, pension funds, sovereign funds, they could be relatively more sure bets as far as I think their long-term investing approach is concerned in some of the capital intensive businesses like power generation, in this case, the renewable power generation.
Okay, so the markets have hit pre-open. Just let's quickly look at what the Nifty is doing. It's indicative of an opening above 23,600 as was being seen from the Gift Nifty trends as well. Let's also look at what are some of the heavyweight counters really doing at this point in time before we get back to the discussion on the markets with Devin sir. So let's look at an Infosys, a TCS as well. These IT stocks that was somehow on the back foot, in the last few days of trade right there. But let's see whether there is some kind of a pullback happening. Of course, the US dollar is strengthening, and let's see whether that really helps up all of these domestic IT companies which have huge businesses back there in the US. Let's look at Infosys, let's look at TCS, and we'll also look at the mid-cap counters of the IT space, Coforge, Persistent Systems, and Emphasis. These have also been showing signs of coming back strongly. So let's pull up some of those to see how the markets are shaping up. Let's also put up some banking stocks as well, the HDFC Bank, the ICICI banks of the world, to see how the banking space also pulled up. So there you have it. Infosys up 2%, and even the banking major HDFC Bank is indicative of an opening above 3% higher at 1794. So two of the heaviest weighted stocks from two different sectors are definitely indicative of a positive start right there. Let's also pull up Reliance Industries to see how that is shaping up. Of course, it's been going through a long trend of downturn, but let's see if there are a percent higher 52 on this front. Let's look at Adani Enterprise, Green Energy, and Adani Energy Solutions as well. The news is pretty big, so let's see whether there is an indicator. Yes, there is a 10% downtick of an indication coming in on Adani Enterprises on these negative developments that have come in. 25.39 for Adani Enterprises. Adani Ports 10% down as well. Adani Green Energy, Adani Energy Solutions. Let's pull up all of those stocks too to see 20% downtick for Adani Green at 11.30. So the markets are not taking this very easily. There is a sharp downtick across the board. Most of these downticks are indicative of lower circuits for most of the stocks within the Adani Group stocks. Adani Power also down by 20%. So all the group stocks are down. Most of these stocks are either 10 or 20% down, which is their circuit filter, is what is being indicative of right now. But the Nifty, on the other hand, there's sharp pull up right there. 23,700, 190 points higher in trade. ACC is also down by about 10 odd percent. So keep an eye out on this contrasting trend that's playing out in the markets. So the Nifty is looking at a positive shape up, but of course the Adani Group stocks are going to be suffering in the markets today right there. 8% downtick for NDTV, 155 rupees right now. We'll continue to look at all of these developments for all of you viewers. Coming back to Devin sir. Devin sir, how should one view this indicative move of about 10-20% downtick of most of the Adani Group stocks? Will it be like catching a falling knife amidst the developments that may further shape up in the next few days? Or do you think this should be seen as an opportunity for retail investors?
Now, let me put it, I think, in the context of how stock market and the investor will also look at. If there is an allegation to win $2 billion worth of power projects, there will be a penalty of 10%. So it will be about $200 million. As against which I think any of their power projects, as against which any of their airport projects, as against which any of their road projects, data center projects, or any businesses in which they are they going to stop generating income tomorrow onwards? Answer is no. So frankly, I think the investor and the trader in the stock market, in the media, in the stock market must get little bit more mature and balanced. Verdict on penalty, more mature and balanced. Verdict on penalty, if at all, I think they're not saying that I think guilty. If at all they are found guilty, there will be a penalty. But none of their businesses are going to stop. If these businesses are not going to stop, are you justified in bringing up the stock price? Probably it's market reaction that market will do. And what level we will go down to, I have no control on that particular aspect. But the fact is that I think if it becomes desperately cheap, if the reasons will come from heaven, I think the buying will take place in the stocks. So I would think that the fundamentals of the businesses and the companies, they remain intact in spite of whatever is going around as a noise in this group right now.
Okay, fair enough. So that's as far as the understanding is. Within the Adani Group stocks, where is it, Devin sir, that you actually find valuation comfort, the fundamentals absolutely intact, and where opportunities can continue to be really looked at? Will it be the infra-focused companies? Will it be the renewable energy-focused companies? Adani Group has been continuously scaling up acquisitions. We've just seen what happened with PSP projects as well. So how are you really navigating through, on the one side, the scale up happening, which was long stopped because of the Hindenburg research report, and on the other side, where these developments are taking place in the renewable energy space as well?
Perfect, absolutely. I think their focus remains on infrastructure, be it power assets, be it road assets, be it airport assets, or be it tracking the renewable assets that we are talking about, including the distribution. So focus remains on infrastructure, and that's where probably I think the company and the group should be looked at, because I think the focus is infrastructure, which is a 25-50 year story. It's not a 1-2 year story. So certainly cash flow generation activity from each of the properties, each of the businesses, they will continue to remain in the business, I think, for that period of time. The two companies look relatively safer, better at this point of time from the valuation perspective also. One would be Adani Port, of course, because of the sizably large amount of cargo handling capacity that they have created in ports. And I think some of the verticals within the port itself are becoming matured, and they will probably, I think, find some monetization. So port remains relatively, I think, a better bet because of the larger cargo capacity rate of growth, and its fortune is linked directly with the economic growth in the country. So that is one good part which we find in port. The second part, I think, which we like is about Adani Enterprise. The road assets, the airport assets, the data center, each of these areas of activity, they are expected to find monetization in the next 2 to 2 years' time. And that's where probably the stock, if at all it is available at a lower price, will make more sense, because none of this change. They will continue to monetize the assets, and the investor will continue to get the benefit. If the stock price comes down, the margin of safety increases. That much I would say, I think, for the investors.
And Devin sir, do you think Adani Group will continue to step on the pedal on these consolidations, mergers, acquisitions, and the expansion that they had lined up? Despite these developments have come in, because earlier on work had come in, this could not be really taken up. Slowly and gradually, things are improving across the board for the conglomerate. Do you think these fresh developments will hinder?
See, again, I'm saying that I think infrastructure building is not 1 year exercise. Infrastructure building is 10, 20, 30, 50 years exercise. That is what they are doing actually. And I don't think that any of these storms will probably stop them. In a simple analogy way, you can also say that once you are on the back of the lion, it is the lion who decides whether you continue to ride on it. So they are actually right now the infrastructure growth. They feel that an infrastructure growth demand continues, they will continue to invest money. It's not certain that, it is rather certain that I think they will have to continue growing the infrastructure activity as much as I think they have invested up till now, and they have to continue investing further because the position matters in the infrastructure business. Suppose if you have got a lead, I think you are definitely going to continue with that lead. That is how I look at this entire investment activity at Adani.
Okay. And sir, let's also discuss PSP projects that are just brought in again. Adani Group of course, Adani Infrastructure at the helm will be now acquiring 30% stake in from one of the founders at 685 odd crore rupees. That's Pralab Bhai S. Patel, one of the promoters of PSP projects, who will be the seller. And of course, there is expectation that it could further raise to about 60% as well from the current 30.7% that we are given to understand. How is this likely to really help in the infra space in the position that Adani aims to really garner over the next few years?
The real estate business in which Adanis have got their business into, plus I think the other activities which they keep on doing from building the infrastructure at every other business levels, I believe that I think they will require the strong infrastructure execution capabilities. And that is where probably the players which are niche players like BSP would probably make sense as far as their portfolio is concerned. And that's what they are doing. I have always been saying that I think for the country of size of India, the kind of infrastructure development that we are asking for, we are not good enough with only one Larsen. We may probably require 10 Larsens. Now, suppose if that is a mantra that one has to understand for next 40, 50 years of growth story, then probably I think Adani Group will have to keep investing in infra as well for smoother execution of the larger projects, which is going to be the order of the day.
Okay. Again, it's the pre-open trade has settled, viewers. So let's quickly look at how things have shaped up. Even Adani bonds have slipped about 10% odd or so. And this is after the US charges, and the group has scrapped that $600 million bond sale too. So you do see that sharp fall across the board. The Nifty has slipped into the red right in the pre-open trade as well. 23,488 right now on the Nifty, a 30 point of a downtick. We are seeing large part of the markets in the correction zone, with metals largely down by over 1% in the pre-open. Oil and gas, pharma, FMCG, even PSU banks and infra stocks down, and even the broader markets also down in trade. The IT, however, space remains to be an outlier. About 0.5% of gains could be seen here. Infosys is the top mover in the pre-open trade as far as the Nifty is concerned. 1% higher. HCL Tech Mahindra are the other top movers, along with L&T and HUL that's pulling up in trade. Real estate sector and consumer durables remain to be the other key sectors that you are seeing in the positive zone right now in trade. But of course, it's the Adani Group stocks that we will be looking at clearly in trade today. So Adani Energy Solutions is down 20%. Adani Total Gas is down by 17.3% in pre-open. Adani Power is also down by about 16.5% in trade. Adani Enterprises 10% lower. Adani Ports 10% lower. Ambuja Cements down 10%. ACC down 10%. You also have Adani Wilmar that's down by nearly 8 odd percent in trade. So those are the key stocks within the Adani Group stocks that are showing this sharp downtick after the reaction on the US SEC has really come in right there. So that's the Adani Group stocks, and we will continue to circle back to them throughout the course of the day to get you an understanding of what experts are really advising after these recent developments. But Devin sir, let's also discuss the macros right there. In the last few days, as far as the FII flows are concerned, a lot of global brokerage houses are changing their stance. CLSA was the first one to talk about how they will be again focusing back on India versus China. There have been others which have started to downgrade China at this point in time as well. How are you really looking at these key positions by the global brokerage houses? Do they indicate any time a reversal in the sell-off that we could see from the FIIs in India?
I think the sell-off reversal has already started taking place. Maybe I think we will gradually see the outcome. The volume on the selling from the FPI has come down. That is also their understanding. Now, if they sold at a peak, if they sold at a high levels, they are justified also at the same time because those valuations were unsustainable. History says that I think whenever your market cap, GDP to market cap, goes above 1.2, I think it is unsustainable. I think in this case, probably started quoting at 1.4, and that's where the premium valuation had to get corrected. So it got corrected. So from that perspective, I think the correction was justified. Correction has happened. Maybe some time correction will continue, but overall environment for investment in the country remains absolutely rock solid and very, very convincing. So in my viewpoint, anybody who has sold earlier, they have a chance to buy back again because the fundamental growth story of the country has not stopped, and the corporate earning growth story is in fact I think becoming much more powerful than what one has seen in previous 10 years.
Right. Okay. Devin sir, positive flows. Which are the key sectors that you think first will be the ones to stage a recovery and outperform, and where should investors focus be then? Should one stick with the large cap banks and IT space to be the safest spaces?
That's right. I think the large cap should be the one. I think we should give the preference because their ability to deploy money would be relatively easier comparatively in large cap vis-a-vis the mid cap and small caps.
Okay, wonderful. Well, always a pleasure to host you, Devin sir, to help us with a broad understanding on the markets and the pearls of wisdom that you always share with our viewers. We always appreciate your presence. Thank you so much for being with us on this show. All right, viewers, we have the opening rates and we'll quickly jump onto the market move then. 168, 172 points lower in trade right now, absolutely away from what the Nifty, GIFT Nifty trends were indicating. Now 23,400 has been breached on the lower side, 0.5% of a decline on the Nifty bank lower by about 0.6%, 270 points lower at 50,367 right now. All the sectors of the Nifty, barring the IT index, have slipped into the red. Look at the kind of moves that we are seeing on PSU banks. That's down by 1.8%. Metals that are down by 1.7%. You also have oil and gas that's down over a percent. Infra, auto, FMCG, pharma, all 0.5% lower in trade. The broader markets too, 0.5% declines being seen on both small caps and the mid caps as well. IT and realty now showing some signs of gains. On the Nifty, the top movers are from the IT bank. You have Infosys 1.9% higher, the top mover on the Nifty. Tech Mahindra, TCS, all of them nearly 1% higher in trade. Then you have Power Grid and Bharti Airtel as among those which are moving up as well. But a whole host of these stocks in the Nifty too have slipped into the red. Of course, Adani Enterprises, let's look at that one. That's the most important group to be really looked at and tracked today. Adani Enterprises down 10%, Adani Ports down 10% as well. Let's also look at a whole host of other stocks from the broader markets that are listed from the Adani Group stocks. Adani Energy Solutions is 20% lower in trade. Circuit down for 3 stocks at least. Let's look at Adani Green Energy, 17% lower. Adani Total Gas, 12% lower in trade. Adani Power, 11.9% lower in trade. NDTV, about 11.7% lower in trade. ACC, that's lower. circuit on this one. Ambuja Cements is also now down, but 10% lower circuit on this one too. Adani Wilmar is now down by 7.8% as well. So you have all these Adani Group stocks down in the red. Let's actually welcome another guest on board. Raghavendra Singh, market expert, now joins in. Raghavendra, good day to you. Tell us, how are you really looking at the Adani Group stocks? Big developments taking place overnight and this morning, and of course, Gautam Adani has been indicted in the US along with some of his fellow officials, and there is a charge of $265 billion of bribe that has been extended from the Adani Group to Indian officials to garner favors in terms of a solar power project, and also has raised loans as well. So these are the pockets that are all reacted sharply to the news coming in from the US. Most of these stocks are down in lower circuits as well. All the stocks down in double digits. Your own sense of how should retail investors be really looking at this development?
जी वेरी गुड आफ्टरनून। साक्षी देखिए, अडानी ग्रुप का जिस हिसाब से न्यूज आया, सो आई बिलीव दिस न्यूज इज गोइंग टू क्रिएट सम chaos and some mess in the stock market, which we have seen right now, because most of the stocks are down around 20%, 10% on the lower side. So I believe this, ये जो अभी शॉक लगा है, so I believe ये शॉक थोड़ा और रहेगा, extend होगा. Reason is अभी it is the immediate reaction by the stock. Now we have to wait for the clarification from the Indian government, from the Adani Group, and from the US official also. So अभी जब तक वो नहीं आता है, so I don't believe कि अभी we have to jump on any conclusion, because this we can see कि अगर आने वाले टाइम में ये भी हो सकता है कि कुछ official statement आएंगे कि नहीं यार it was just कुछ न्यूज था या फिर ऐसा कुछ हुआ ही नहीं. So maybe शायद रिएक्शन उल्टा होता. अभी फिलहाल it is better to avoid the entire group, better focus on some other sector. IT stocks are doing good. बैंक्स में एचडीएफसी बैंक जो है, एचडीएफसी बैंक अच्छा कर रहा है. सो मोस्ट ऑफ द स्टॉक जो कि अभी अडानी ग्रुप में नीचे हैं, फिलहाल अभी अवॉइड करना चाहिए.
ओके, अदानी ग्रुप अभी अवॉइड कर चलना चाहिए. इनफैक्ट अगर राघवेंद्र देखें तो लगातार कई साल से हम कुछ ना कुछ इश्यूज देख ही रहे हैं. पहले हिंडनबर्ग रिसर्च, उसके बाद सेबी की जिस तरीके से कार्रवाई हुई, काफ़ी लंबे अरसे से इश्यूज़ के बाद इश्यूज़ ये पूरा ही ग्रुप फेस करता हुआ नज़र आ रहा है. हालांकि हमने जब कंक्लूजन आए थे और एक क्लीन चिट भी मिलता हुआ नज़र आया था इंडियन कंग्लोमरेट सेबी की तरफ से, तब एक रिवर्सल ऑफ ट्रेंड भी देखा था अदानी ग्रुप स्टॉक्स में. एक ऑलमोस्ट कई स्टॉक्स ने तो अपना सारा लॉस भी रिकवर करता हुआ देखा था, और उसके बाद एक बार फिर से कंसोलिडेशन का चलन शुरू हुआ, जहां एक तरफ अदानी ग्रुप जो है वो लगातार इन्वेस्टमेंट्स कर रहा है, एक्विजिशंस कर रहा है, एक बार फिर से स्केल अप करने की कोशिश कर रहा है, और एक बार फिर से ये इम्पेडिमेंट आ जाना. तो आपको क्या लगता है कि एक बार फिर से जिस तरीके से एक्सपेंशंस हो रहे थे वहां पर कुछ रुकावट आ सकती है अदानी समूह के लिए? एक बार और लंबे समय तक चीजें जो हैं क्लियर नहीं रहेंगी?
नहीं मैम, मुझे लगता है कि अभी फिलहाल जिस हिसाब से ये न्यूज आई है, कुछ दिनों के लिए थोड़ा सा एक जो है झटका लगेगा, पॉज लगेगा, बट मुझे नहीं लगता कि लंबी अवधि में कुछ बहुत ज्यादा नेगेटिव असर होने वाला है. देखिए, ये हर कोई जानता है कि बिजनेस के लिए कुछ ना कुछ आपको चीजें करनी पड़ती हैं. बिजनेस आपको जो भी आपको लेना हो, बिजनेस में कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लेना हो या कोई भी चीजें, तो वो चीजें ऑफिशियल लेवल पे नहीं होता, लेकिन अनऑफिशियल बहुत चीजें होती हैं. मुझे नहीं लगता कि बहुत बड़ा इसका असर होगा. हिंडनबर्ग ने भी जो रिपोर्ट निकाली थी, उसका जो शॉर्ट टर्म में असर था, स्टॉक्स बहुत नीचे आ गए. अगर ये न्यूज भी आई है तो ये 2 दिन 3 दिन का होगा पेन, पर ये पेन कितना होगा ये देखना. बट उसके बाद जैसे रिकवरी आएगी तो आई बिलीव, और जो भी स्टॉक्स इनके हैं उसमें रिकवरी बहुत अच्छी से आएगी. अभी मैंने वही बोला कि अभी मैनेजमेंट का क्या क्लैरिफिकेशन आता है, मैनेजमेंट क्या बोलता है इन चीजों पे, मुझे वो देखना है. स्टेटमेंट क्या आता है गौतम अडानी जी का, वो देखना है. उसके बाद इंडियन ऑफिशियल्स क्या बोलते हैं कि ये चीजें, क्योंकि इसमें इंडियन ऑफिशियल्स का भी नाम है कि हमने अडानी ने जो इंडियन ऑफिशियल्स को वहां पे ब्राइब दिया हुआ है, तो इनका स्टेटमेंट बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट. तो अभी 3:30 बजे तक ये डिसाइड कर पाना कि स्टॉक्स किस तरफ जाएंगे, लेना चाहिए नहीं, ये बहुत मुश्किल है. लेकिन ये डेफिनेटली है कि आज नहीं तो कल इसमें से बाहर भी निकलेंगे, और इनके ग्रोथ में कुछ भी ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई बहुत बड़ा स्टॉपेज होने वाला है. डेफिनेटली कंपनी ग्रो करती रहेगी, ये सब चीजें आती रहेंगी.
बिल्कुल. इसी के साथ मैं आपसे ये भी सवाल पूछना चाहूँगी, अभी तक पूरे अदानी समूह में क्या आप कोई ऐसे स्टॉक्स को ट्रैक कर रहे थे जहां पर आप डिप्स का इंतजार कर रहे थे, और क्या ये अपॉर्चुनिटी वो डिप प्रेजेंट कर रही है, या फिर ये कैचिंग द फॉलिंग नाइफ वाली सिचुएशन है?
नहीं, बिल्कुल. अभी जो सबसे स्ट्रांग कंपनी इस ग्रुप की है वो अडानी पोर्ट. जिसका बिजनेस जिसको कि हम सामने से देख रहे हैं, प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी देख रहे हैं, बहुत अच्छा है। मेरे हिसाब से वो बहुत ऊपर आया था 1500-1600 पे, जहां पे कि मैं वेट कर रहा था थोड़ा करेक्शन आए। आज देखिए वो नीचे आ गया। अंबुजा सीमेंट में मुझे लग रहा था कि थोड़ा सा अगर करेक्शन आता है 450-500 के रेंज में, वो एक बाइंग अपॉर्चुनिटी है। तो ये दो स्टॉक ऐसे हैं ओवरऑल अडानी ग्रुप में, जो मुझे लगता है कि बिल्कुल डिप में बाई करना चाहिए। अभी 10% नीचे है, हो सकता है 5%, 10% और नीचे आए, तो थोड़ा सा स्पेस रखिए और बाई करते रहिए।
ओके। फिलहाल एक और जो अपडेट आ रही है व्यूअर्स, मैं आपको एक बार फिर से बता देती हूँ कि गौतम अडानी ने जो 600 मिलियन डॉलर्स की बॉन्ड डील थी उसे अबैंडन कर दिया है इन चार्जेस के। जो यूएस में बॉन्ड्स लिस्टेड हैं अदानी समूह के, वहां पर शार्प गिरावट देखने को मिल रही है। 10% तक का आसपास हमें फॉल देखने को मिला है अदानी बॉन्ड्स में भी। और इसी वजह से अगर आप देखेंगे तो अक्रॉस द बोर्ड मार्केट्स और बॉन्ड मार्केट्स दोनों में ही एक इम्पैक्ट आपको। In fact, Adani Group has shelved these bond sales just hours after pricing it, following this announcement of the US Department of Justice and the SEC. The allegations, which now claim that Adani and other executives have orchestrated bribes to Indian officials to secure lucrative solar energy contracts. And I will also read up that existing Adani green energy bonds that were issued in March, they fell record 15 cents, trading as low as 80 cents on the dollar. And other Adani Group securities have also dropped sharply, with losses rivaling those triggered by last year's Hindenburg research report, which accused the company of stock manipulation and accounting frauds as well. Now, while Adani did weather some of these allegations, these charges highlighted that ongoing governance and regulatory risks continue, as per some of the brokerage houses which have been indicating. Now, remember, the indictment which has been filed by Brooklyn also alleges Adani and other executives have misled investors while raising the funds from the US markets. Key figures named include Sagar Adani and Vineet Jain as well. This is for and they are accused of violating the federal laws too. This is all as per the US prosecution reports that we have been getting in the media. The group's reputation has been under scrutiny since the Hindenburg research report had wiped out first time $150 billion from its market value back in 2023. Now, we did see how Adani Group had been building and rebuilding the investor confidence since then, but the US charges again now have threatened to derail some of their efforts too. And despite the setbacks already, Adani Group had announced plans to invest $10 billion in US energy and infrastructure as well, signaling their ambition to expand mounting legal and market pressures. Let's see whether that now stays on course. That will be the biggest question that we will have most of the experts answer for you on this show as well, and as well as throughout the course of the day. But moving on from the Adani Group, let's get back to the markets as well. Raghavindra, how are you really looking at the market setup? Are you seeing any signs of reversal coming in after this long 5 week of a sell-off that we have seen in the markets? Or do you see some more pain and volatility, and now with these fresh developments also coming in, probably what we were expecting, some bounces to happen, could again be under question?
Definitely, Sakshi. There is no sign of recovery in the market. Any rise is, used by FIIs to sell on rise.
Yeah.
So I believe जो भी upside है वो selling है. So I have not seen any kind of rise, in the market. जब तक हम 23,800 के ऊपर close नहीं होते 2 दिन, तब तक मुझे upside बिल्कुल नहीं दिख रहा है. Downside 23,200 is the, lower level, जो कि मुझे लगता है 200 EMA के नीचे है, and that head and shoulder का pattern का breakdown टारगेट ही होता है. सो आई बिलीव अभी ये जो है सेलिंग रहेगा, बिकॉज वी हैव सीन ब्रॉडर मार्केट सेलिंग इन द एंटायर मार्केट कैप स्टॉक, वेदर इट इज रिलायंस, वेदर इट इज आप चाहे उसको एशियन पेंट ले लीजिए, चाहे आप आइशर मोटर ले लो. सो मोस्ट ऑफ द हैवी वेट्स स्टॉक्स आर डाउन एंड द सेलिंग इज लीड बाय द रिलायंस जब तक स्टेबल नहीं होता, जब तक रिलायंस में अप ट्रेंड नहीं आता, मुझे ये तो, क्योंकि देखिए मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि एफआईज ने रिलायंस में से एग्जिट किया है, और वो मे भी शायद हो सकता है एचडीएफसी में शिफ्ट हो, या हो सकता है कि वो किसी और स्टॉक में शिफ्ट हो. सो अनलेस वी डोंट सी एनी काइंड ऑफ राइज इन आरआईएल, आई हैव नॉट आई डोंट फाइंड एनी काइंड ऑफ अपसाइड इन द मार्केट इटसेल्फ. बैंक निफ्टी यस थोड़ा सा वो दिख रहा था स्टेबल है, बट मुझे लगता है बैंक निफ्टी भी कहीं ना कहीं एचडीएफसी के कारण होल्ड कर रहा है. तो जिस दिन बैंक निफ्टी में थोड़ा सा अगर 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 एचडीएफसी डिस्टर्ब होगा, देन उसके बाद मुझे लगता है बैंक निफ्टी भी नीचे आ सकता है। बट ओवरऑल मुझे लगता है कि एचडीएफसी बैंक में पैसा आ रहा है, एचडीएफसी एक नए साइड मुझे लगता है 1800 के ऊपर दिख जाएगा बहुत जल्दी।
Okay. Circling back to the Adani Group stocks, let's look at within the FNO space what else is crashing. ACC is now 10% lower in trade. Adani Enterprises also down 10%. Adani Ports also down 10% in trade. And Ambuja Cements also down 9.9%. Most of these stocks are hitting that 10% lower circuit even within the FNO space right there. No relief coming in for any one of them. And then we'll also look at the kind of move that we are seeing on the flagships, Adani Enterprises and some of the other broader market stocks also. Adani Wilmar, let's look at this one as well. There's a sharp downward trajectory, yes, an 8% downtick for this one too. But let's also look at PSP projects. Remember, this is also linked to the Adani Group today. There was a positive news flow that happened. Amidst this, all the negativity, we've forgotten to take a view on PSP projects too. The reason is that Adani Group has looked at a 30% stake purchase from PSP projects, and that's something that you should be really looking at. Today the stock is in fact lower by about 8%, so probably that's also getting reeled into the pressure with the Adani Group deal that's coming in. But this is something that was also expected before, and from one of the key promoters, Adani Infrastructure has purchased this stake. So let's look at this PSP Infra as well right now and see how the stock has been reacting. Today, of course, it's been down, but Adani Infra is to buy this 30% stake for $81 million. Remember that, and this is to strengthen the infra position of the Adani Group. Raghavendra, how have you really looked at this news development, and what does this news also means for PSP Infra, particularly garnering that $81 million for the 30% stake? And there are now expectations, there is buzz on the street that this could well go above even 60% in the coming days as well. How would you
साक्षी देखिए, अभी मुझे लग रहा है कि ये थोड़ा सा इसमें जो डील हो रही है वो शायद हो सकता है थोड़ा रुकेगा बिकॉज ऑफ दिस न्यूज। सो आई थिंक एक 2 दिन 3 दिन हफ्ते भर के लिए थोड़ा सा एक पेन है। सो जब तक ये क्लैरिटी नहीं आती है कि हाउ दिस ग्रुप इज गोइंग टू डील विद दिस काइंड ऑफ एलिगेशंस अपार्ट, सो इसके अलावा मुझे नहीं लगता कि बहुत बड़ा कोई इफेक्ट होगा। यस, पीएसपी प्रोजेक्ट के लिए अच्छी बात है कि उसमें 60% स्टेक जा रहा है, बट मुझे अभी फिलहाल हो सकता है कि ये बीच में अबंडन हो जाए, शायद हो सकता है रुक जाए। सो थोड़ा सा अभी अपने को वेट करना पड़ेगा। वी हैव टू वेट फॉर अनदर 10 days क्या डेवलपमेंट होते हैं यूएस मार्केट, यूएस में एंड इंडियन जो गवर्नमेंट है उनके द्वारा, तो वो एक बार देखते हैं, देन उसके बाद कुछ इस पे कॉल लेंगे। बट मुझे नहीं लगता कि बहुत ज्यादा इफेक्ट होना चाहिए बिकॉज डील इज ऑल्सो जो है उसमें चल रही है और वो पेपर वर्क बचा होगा शायद। बट हो सकता है ये न्यूज की वजह से थोड़ा सा सेटबैक लगे और डील कैंसिल होने के भी चांसेस है। सो लेट्स सी।
Oh, okay. So that would be a big question right there. Let's see how the developments really shape up from here on. Another thing that I wanted to also discuss is the cement stocks, ACC and Ambuja right there within the Adani basket. Despite the Hindenburg crisis that played along, despite all the crisis that we saw, impact the entire Adani group and the 10 listed stocks right there, these were the two stocks that most of the fundamental experts have always viewed in positive light because these were the recent acquisitions and they were large companies in themselves, leaders within the cement space in there for many years in a row. And now looking at how the scenario is shaping up for the cement sector, the way mergers and acquisitions are happening, the way bigger conglomerates are actually coming in right there, what is the sense that you're getting on an ACC or an Ambuja? Will these be the safest bets to really take benefit from these dips within the Adani group in case you want to stay clear of the Adani infra names, energy names, maybe even the flagship names right there? How about these cement entities right there? Do you think they will be the least impacted even if the impact was to come up throughout the course?
I doubt. Actually, this is the group company, so I don't think ये अभी बच जाएंगे उससे. So effect होगा definitely इसमें भी होने वाला है अंबुजा सीमेंट और ACC में. Yes, the stock has broken the very important level of 2000 in ACC and 520 in Ambuja Cement. उसके बाद मुझे लगता है 10 से 15% का फॉल और है, डाउन साइड है, लेकिन जितना फॉल अडानी ग्रुप की अदर कंपनीज में होगा उसमें इसमें बहुत ज्यादा नहीं होगा, लेकिन डेफिनेटली ये भी इनसे अछूता नहीं रहेगा। तो मुझे लगता है कि दोनों स्टॉक्स में और भी फॉल आ सकते हैं, तो बेटर है अभी फिलहाल इंटायर ग्रुप को अवॉइड करें, दोनों बचेंगे नहीं।
Okay, got that. So avoid and avoid. That's the clear word that's coming in from experts right now. There is no need to jump into the bandwagon and look at this as an opportunity right here. Even if you do not get the stock prices down at these levels, which you may see them as attractive for the long term, it's better for the dust to settle down and maybe see when things are actually clearer for you to not get your hands burnt at this point in time. That's the view that's coming in, or the Adani Group stocks. Let's also talk about Adani Ports, which you mentioned, Raghavendra, that seems to be, the stock which is probably the best placed within the Adani Group. Because of its, monopolistic nature, the large market share that it has, and of course, much bigger player that it has in the port space when it compares to any other player that would be in the Indian market, both on the east and the west coast of India, and the scalability opportunity that it presents, the export opportunity that it already has. How do you think investors should be viewing Adani Ports at 1160 odd or so? What are the valuations saying? What are the fundamentals been? How have you assessed the earnings, and how would you look at Adani Ports right now?
Technically, Adani Port has broken a very important support of 1250, now trading at 1160. Downside, I think 1070, 1090 is the level from where we can expect some kind of bounce. Apart from that, yes, fundamentally, और जिस हिसाब से क्वार्टरली रिजल्ट आए थे, कंपनी ने इस बार बहुत बड़ा अच्छा रिजल्ट नहीं दिया था, बट ओवरऑल मुझे लगता है कि कंपनी आने वाले समय में बहुत अच्छा कर सकती है। ओवरऑल वी हैव सीन द कंपनी का बिजनेस मॉडल और मोनोपोलिस्टिक बिजनेस इनका है, तो मेरे हिसाब से यस 1100 के नीचे 1120 ले लो आप, या 1080 1090, वो एक लेवल होगा फ्रॉम वेयर आई थिंक मुझे लगता है एक बार बाउंस आएगा और कंपनी दोबारा से 1500-1600 तक जब जाएगी, तो जितने लंबी अवधि के निवेशक है वो डेफिनेटली 1100 के आसपास जरूर बाई करें इस स्टॉक को।
Okay, got it. So that's the view that's coming in. But let me just read out for all of you viewers some of the reactions that have already started to pour in from the opposition parties right there. Congress has reacted to this US bribery allegations against Adani, and we have seen how, some of the, ministers right there, especially Congress leader Jairam Ramesh, has already posted on Twitter saying the indictment of Gautam Adani and others by the SEC of the US vindicates the demand that the Indian National Congress has been making since January 2023 for a JPC investigation into various Adani scams right there. This is quote unquote from what Jairam Ramesh has mentioned in his latest tweet right there, that's been made just about few moments ago on Twitter too. So some of the reactions that are already pouring in. So the political debate will also first stocks right there about energy solutions and Adani Green Energy right there. Let's come to the renewable energy space now, Raghavendra. As far as the Adani Group is concerned, how are you really looking at the opportunity that Adani Group is really looking at? This is the time we have an NTPC Green IPO that's already opened. This is the time when other, big conglomerates like even Ambani's have also talked about their plans of going big on the renewable energy space. Even Tatas have been with through or via Tata Power planning bigger plans as far as the renewable energy space is concerned. So over the next 5-10 years, this was being seen as the opportunity that would present to the investors, long-term investors, if they really wanted to make money, because the country has its clear focus on the net zero goals. The government is also promoting all those companies and industries that have a focus on solar, wind, and even hydro and other renewable energy plans as well. How are you really looking at these two players which are relatively younger, Adani Green and Adani Energy Solutions? Do you think things will be far more difficult for them to now scale up vis-a-vis the other competitors at this point in time?
साक्षी देखिए, ये कॉम्पिटिटर्स के साथ बीट कर पाना मुझे नहीं लगता कि बहुत बड़ा मुश्किल होगा, बिकॉज दे आर इन दिस फील्ड सिंस लॉन्ग टाइम। अभी बहुत लोग आने वाले हैं, वारी एनर्जी भी आ चुका है, एनटीपीसी इज कमिंग इन दिस फील्ड, अंबानी इज प्लानिंग एज यू सेड। तो ये सबके लिए बहुत ऐसा ये फील्ड है जिसमें बहुत बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी दिख रही है, इसीलिए सब लोग आ रहे हैं। बाकी अगर कुछ इसमें अपॉर्चुनिटी नहीं होता तो अंबानी अडानी नहीं आते इसमें। सो डेफिनेटली इसका मतलब है कि वहां पे इनके पास प्लान है, आगे कैसे अगले 10 साल में कैसे काम करना है। देखिए आज की जो न्यूज है ये बहुत ही शॉर्ट टर्म न्यूज है, बहुत शॉर्ट टर्म इम्पैक्ट होने वाला है। बट अगर ये लंबी अवधि में जाना है या कोई लंबी अवधि का निवेशक है, उसके लिए ये न्यूज अपॉर्चुनिटी, जितने भी ग्रीन एनर्जी ले लो आप, या भी जो भी एनर्जी वाले स्टॉक्स इनके नीचे हैं, मुझे लगता है ये अपॉर्चुनिटी दे रहा है बाई करने के लिए। देखिए ये शॉर्ट टर्म से कुछ बहुत बड़ा इफेक्ट नहीं होने वाला है लंबी अवधि के लिए। सो इनका जो और भी अगर कंपनियां आती हैं, इसमें कंपटीशन बढ़ता है, तो ये बहुत अच्छी बात है। तो एटलीस्ट ये इन्वेस्टर्स के लिए भी अच्छी बात है, और ये इन कंपनियों के लिए के पास पीयर प्रेशर होगा, मुझे अच्छा काम करना है, मुझे अच्छी चीज वहां पे डिलीवर करनी है। तो मेरे हिसाब से ये बहुत अच्छी चीज है अगर कंपटीशन कंपटीशन बढ़ रहा है। और इस लेवल पे जो एनर्जी जो कंपनियां हैं, जो अडानी एनर्जी ले लो या जो है अडानी ग्रीन ले लो, मुझे लगता है ये बहुत नीचे आ चुकी हैं। तो धीरे धीरे यहाँ से एक्युमुलेशन होगा, और जो इनका प्लान ऑफ एक्शन था वो ऐसे होता रहेगा। ये शॉर्ट टर्म की न्यूज है, ये बहुत जल्दी यहाँ से निकल भी जाएगी।
Okay, got that. Let's actually show you viewers something that you would remember. Just when Donald Trump had won the US elections as well, we did see Gautam Adani, write in on Twitter too, and we will pull up this tweet for all of you to really see. He talked about, and I will quote from his tweet, "Congratulations to Donald Trump. As the partnership between India and the United States deepens, the Adani Group is committed to leveraging its global expertise and invest $10 billion in US energy security and resilient infrastructure projects, aiming to create up to 15,000 jobs in the US." So that's what Gautam Adani had pointed out. We will now have to see how things will progress, because it is in the US that this prosecution has taken place. It is the US SEC that has charged Gautam Adani with these bribery cases right there in India for securing these large solar power projects planned in India. Now, how does this really go forward from here is something we will really need to see. Their commitments in the US, the scaling up plans, something that has been Gautam Adani's dream to make it big in the US as well. How will that really shape up is something that all of us will also keep an eye out on right there. So we will be definitely looking at all of those things too. Let us also look at how some of the other stocks are now moving. So Adani Ports is something that is definitely that we've been discussing, 10% lower. Even NDTV is now lower by about 11.7%. One of the latest acquisitions within the media space as well. We've discussed the energy solutions companies. We've discussed the ports with you. We've also discussed, but how about the Wilmar story also, Raghavendra? This was one of the most surprising factors with the way the issue came in, the way it gave multi-bagger returns just within days. This was being seen as a huge story within the FMCG space as far as the Wilmar is concerned. But things have not shaped up the way it was planned or been seen in the early part of its launch on the D Street. Where have things gone wrong for Adani Wilmar?
साक्षी देखिए, अडानी विल्मर के लिए जो सबसे गलत चीज हो गई वो जो एक्विजिशन था कारगिल का। कारगिल जो इनका एक्विजिशन किया था इन्होंने ऑयल का, एडिबल ऑयल का, वो थोड़ा वहां पे बहुत एक्सपेंसिव डील हुआ था। ऑलमोस्ट मुझे लगता है 3,200 करोड़ के आसपास की डील हुई थी। वो बहुत ज्यादा मार्केट में मुझे लगता है कि पैन आउट नहीं कर पाए, बिकॉज और भी जो इनके कॉम्पिटिटर्स हैं उनकी वजह से थोड़ा सा इनको वहां पे सेटबैक लगा। बट मुझे लगता है कि AWL जो है अडानी विल्मर, मुझे नहीं लग रहा है कि बहुत बड़ा ऐसा आने वाले समय में बहुत बड़ा मल्टी बैगर हो सकता है। कंपनी देखिए FMCG जो है वो धीरे धीरे ग्रो करेगी। पैन इंडिया आपका ग्रोथ होना चाहिए ओवर, बिकॉज कैसा है कि रूरल एरिया में आज भी डिमांड जो है वो डाबर की है, ITC की है, आज भी हिंदुस्तान लीवर है। तो उसके बीच में अडानी को अपने प्रोडक्ट को प्लेस आउट करना, मैं ये बात कर रहा हूँ एकदम ग्राउंड लेवल पे, कि अगर आज मैं जाता हूँ बाजार में, गांव में जाता हूँ और देखता हूँ कि रूरल एरिया में क्या चीज है, ये मुझे कहीं पे भी ग्राउंड लेवल पे इनका ना कहीं मार्केटिंग दिखता है ना कहीं प्रोडक्ट दिखता है। सो मेरे लिए एक थोड़ा सा चैलेंजेस है कि ये कितनी जल्दी उस चीज को जो है इनकरेज कर पाएंगे, जितने भी मतलब रूरल एरिया वहां पे सेल्स को अपने, तो उस पे फोकस करना पड़ेगा। ये थोड़ा सा यहाँ पे इनका वीक हो रहा है मुझे लगता है। बट ओवरऑल मुझे लगता है कि कंपनी तो अच्छी है, FMCG में है, बहुत अच्छी लेवल में मिल रही है। 400-450 रुपए का स्टॉक था, वहां से 300 रुपए के नीचे है। तो प्राइस वाइज मुझे लगता है स्टॉक अच्छा है, यहाँ पे ले सकते हैं। बट मुझे लगता है अभी भी ओवरऑल जो ग्रुप में जो है थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लम है, वो जब तक वहां से निकल ना जाए, एंट्री लेना बहुत रिस्की है, अवॉइड करें। और अडानी विल्मर मुझे लगता है कि 2-3 साल का अगर व्यू है तो थोड़ा थोड़ा यहाँ से एक्सपेरिमेंट करना स्टार्ट करें।
Okay, got it. Let's also look at these statements that are now coming in. Viewers, we are going to be reading this out for all of you. This is important for you to note. This is, I think, the first statement that is actually coming in from Adani Green on the US SEC charges that have been put out right there. And the statement reads on, and I will just be quoting from the statement. The United States Department of Justice and the United States Securities and Exchange Commission have issued a criminal indictment and brought a civil complaint, respectively, in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of New York against our board members, Gautam Adani and Sagar Adani. The United States Department of Justice have also included our board member Vneet Jain in such criminal indictment. In light of these developments, our subsidiaries have presently decided not to proceed with the proposed US dollar denominated bond offerings. You are requested to take the same on your records. So that's the first statement that's actually come in. It just talks about that they are taking cognizance of the fact that the US Department of Justice and the US SEC have issued a criminal indictment and brought a civil complaint, in the United States District Court against the board members Gautam Adani and Sagar Adani. And therefore, as a reaction to this, what the group has done is to withdraw those $600 million of bonds that were proposed as well. So that is something that officially has been communicated from the Adani group right there on that front too. So let's actually look at some other movements. Bonds have reacted sharply lower in trade, as we have already pointed out. A 10-15% downtick is already what is being seen on this front as well. So it's not just the stock markets, but even the bond markets reacting very sharply on the lower side as far as the Adani Group stocks and bonds are concerned on that front. Let's also look at some of the movements that are now seeing. We will keep on looking at all those stocks and the reactions right there. So where the circuit is being seen is continuing to stay put. The other stocks are actually not moving much. They are actually holding on to that morning loss that we have seen. So Adani Green Energy is on with that 18% loss. Adani Power is staying on with that 13.5%. Adani Total Gas, again a 13.5% loss. Adani Total Gas also down by about 14 odd percent. ACC is now down by about 12 odd percent right there. Adani Enterprises 10% lower, Adani Ports 10% lower, Adani Wilmar 10% lower, Ambuja Cements 10% lower, NDTV also now down by about 9.65% right there. So they are holding on to that loss right now, and it's not looking good as far as the Adani Group stocks are concerned at this point in time. Raghavendra, you've constantly talked about how this is not the time to really see these stocks as an opportunity of about 20%, 18% downtick that you're seeing on many stocks right here, because this will mean some more days of developments to come in, reactions to come in from the Adani Group as well as from the Indian officials as well as to how do they react right now. Of course, in the past, viewers, what we have seen with Hindenburg 1 and Hindenburg 2 with respect to Adani Group is that across the board, our Indian entities, our Indian regulators have actually nearly given a clean sheet to the Adani Group with respect to the allegations that were previously made right there. But this is going to be different. This is where charges of bribery have been made right there. They have been proven in the court as well. And therefore, this reaction that has come in is a reaction, and the company also has withdrawn the bill right there too. We'll just have to wait and watch to find out how many more communications do we get to see from the group, from Gautam Adani himself, and from the Indian individuals and the officials as well throughout the day today and in the course of the next few days as well. So Raghavendra, for those who have been holding these stocks in their long-term portfolio, should they stay away from any panic reactions or maybe sell after this knee-jerk 20%, 18% downtick across the board right now? Should they stay put, or what exactly would your advice be as far as those holding Adani Group stocks for the long term?
If you're holding for the long term, I think you need not to panic at this point of time, because this news is going to vanish. 2-3 दिन का पेन है, ये एक हफ्ते के बाद आपको दिखेगा there is some stability in the market. Unless and until we don't see any kind of stability in the market, it is better to avoid doing any kind of action in the Adani group. बेटर अवॉइड कीजिए, वेट कीजिए, बिकॉज यू आर द लॉन्ग टर्म इन्वेस्टर, तो आपने अभी शॉर्ट टर्म के लिए बाई नहीं किया है, ठीक है, स्टॉक्स नीचे है 15% 20% का शॉर्ट डाउन ट्रेंड है, बेटर है अभी इस चीज को अवॉइड करिए, यहाँ पे ऐड भी नहीं करना है, एग्जिट भी नहीं करना है, स्टॉप लॉसेस क्योंकि अगर आप लॉन्ग टर्म की इन्वेस्टर हो तो आपने बहुत पिछले सब देखा होगा, हमने हिंडनबर्ग भी देखा है 1 और 2। साक्षी एक चीज देखिए, आप जब से ट्रम्प जीत करके आए हैं, मुझे लगता है कि जब तक वो कुर्सी पर बैठ ना जाए इस टाइप की चीजें होती रहेंगी, इंडियन बिजनेसमैन को आप देखिए टारगेट करना या इस तरीके की चीजें लेके आना। सो आई डोंट थिंक ये बहुत बड़ा असर हो, 2-3 महीने का है, जनवरी के बाद मुझे लगता है एवरीथिंग विल बी ओके। और एक मुझे लगता है कि जो भी रिपोर्ट्स आ रही हैं कि ब्राइब दिया या ये सब चीजें हुई हैं, ठीक है, इसके मुझे बहुत ज्यादा जानकारी नहीं कि इसमें लीगल एक्शन क्या हो सकता है, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि ये चीजें भी हैं जो इसमें से भी ये स्टॉक निकल जाएगा, कंपनी निकल जाएगी बाहर, तो बेटर है वेट करिए, अच्छे टाइम के लिए वेट कीजिए। अगर और नीचे मिलता है 20-25% 30% यहाँ से, तो डेफिनेटली एडवाइज टू ऐड दीज स्टॉक्स, बिकॉज रिकवरी भी इन स्टॉक्स में उतनी स्पीड से आएगी, आप ये जान लीजिए।
Okay, got it. Let me also tell all our viewers, GQG Partners, which is an investor, a huge investor in the Adani Group companies, is also looking at monitoring the charges against Gautam Adani and the Adani Group executives. This is as per Reuters quoting sources has mentioned. What GQG Partners has is as investments in the company or the group. Remember the Adani Group company, which had in the past raised more than $175 million in the US, is facing these charges right now. And GQG, the stock which is listed in Sydney, is also showing a sharp reaction downward, 21% lower for this one right there. So let's not lose sight of that. Remember, GQG had come in at that point in time when the world had stopped believing in the Adani Group story, when the Hindenburg research had caused a massive fall across the board in the Adani Group stocks back in 2023. And let's also look at what the statements are coming in from GQG Partners is right now. GQG Partners is one of the first investors to acquire a stake in the Adani Group post the Hindenburg scandal in 2023, as I mentioned. And now they are evaluating all the scenarios and the investments right now. That is the news that is coming in. In a statement, GQG has said it is monitoring the charges brought today by the US Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York and the US SEC against Gautam Adani and certain other Adani Group executives and companies. They have said, and I quote, "Our team is reviewing the emerging details and determining what, if any, actions for our portfolios are appropriate." This is what GQG statement has mentioned. GQG has also added that consistent with their portfolio construction guidelines, GQG portfolios makes diversified investments, and in aggregate over 90% of the clients' assets are invested in the issuers unrelated to the Adani Group right now. As of the quarter that ended on in September right there, what we are given to understand from the Adani Group and from the GQG Partners Group, they held a stake in 6 Adani Group companies, which ranged between 1.5 to 2%. Remember, in Ambuja Cements, GQG's stake as of September 30th of 2024 is at 2.05%. Adani Energy Solutions, they hold a 1.89% stake. Adani Power, they have a 1.76% stake. Adani Green Energy, a 1.62% stake. Adani Enterprises, 1.45% stake. And Adani Ports, 1.45% stake as well. So GQG will be now evaluating all the investments that have been made in the Adani Group as there. So all those developments from GQG is also something that we will be really looking at right now. Raghavendra, right, I was pointing out that GQG was perhaps the first vote of confidence from Rajiv Jain that actually had come in at a time when there was no light at the end of the tunnel being seen for the Adani Group right after the Hindenburg research report. In fact, it was the turning point for the Adani Group stocks when such a large investor had poured in huge amounts of money. Of course, they made huge amount of profits when they invested, in most of these stocks that were 60%, 70% lower from from their all-time high levels right there. And of course, they made their profits. Things turned on for the better. But now a statement coming in from them that they will be now evaluating their investments. 6 companies is what they hold, over 1% stake right there, some of them which I have already mentioned. Do you think these are the companies, if any kind of a pullback happens from GQG, will be facing even more wrath?
Absolutely, why not? Because see, GQG is the major investor in their company, and they are holding a very huge amount of stake in this company. So I believe once they decided something very serious allegation, और उनको लगे कि नहीं यार आने वाले समय में और प्रॉब्लम हो सकती है, डेफिनेटली दे कैन एग्जिट देयर होल्डिंग, बट आई डोंट थिंक सो कि अभी वो एग्जिट करेंगे. दे आर इवेल्युएटिंग एंड मे बी वो शायद और ऐड करना चाहें इस लेवल पे, या
Right.
और ऐड कर सकते हैं, बिकॉज the valuations are very good, because Ambuja Cements was trading around 650 600 level when they enter, now trading around 450 460. तो वैल्यूएशन वाइज ही बहुत अट्रैक्टिव लेवल है. तो मुझे लगता है शायद इवैल्यूएशन इसलिए हो रहा होगा कि शायद हो सकता है कि अब यहाँ से जो इन्वेस्टमेंट और 10-20 करोड़ का आएगा, वो शायद मल्टी बैगर जो हो सकता है उनके लिए रिटर्न. So maybe evaluating for the more investment, not for exiting in
Okay.
the from the
Okay.
Adani group.
Okay, got that. Let's also welcome Gaurang Shah on the call with us. He's on the phone line with us right now. Gaurang, good morning. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Well, you have been reading these statements that are coming in on the Adani group and the charges that have been made by the US SEC on Gautam Adani and 7 other officials right there. Adani group stocks have been battered this morning. How are you looking at this development right now with respect to the Adani group? Is more pain in the offing forward from here?
Thank you, Sakshi, and morning to all of you. So I think the news has just come across, and the reaction, like earlier time and always, we have seen a knee-jerk reaction on the counters. There has been some kind of clarification given by the Adani group as far as this news flow is concerned. I think now it's going to be a matter of arguments and counter-arguments, clarification and counter-clarification. It will be a developing story. But my sense is that it will take some time for the dust and also related to the US courts, but through some courts, as we know of Edinburgh. So again, my sense is that it will take some time to settle, and a little bit of more clarity. There will be some kind of base building it. But for the next couple of days, I think it's going to be quite tough, right? Depending upon what kind of news is there from either side.
So, Gaurang, after this 18-20% downtick that we have already seen today, is there anywhere within the Adani group that you find this as an opportunity, or do you think this will be like catching a falling knife for most of the investors who would be viewing long-term opportunity?
Well, I won't comment on the specific because we don't have coverage on Adani group stock.
Okay.
But
yeah.
Call today and tomorrow is Friday. We don't know what will happen overnight. Wait for the dust to settle down. Wait for the news to get digested, and then possibly one can decide on one's own wisdom. But I won't possibly be specific in terms of which company you should look at. Though I believe there are some strong companies. Since we don't have coverage according to the regulation, I won't be in a position to comment.
Okay, so Gaurang, what about the cement makers? I think ACC and Ambuja is something that you still hold in your portfolios right there. How would you be looking at them afresh?
Yeah, so these are the two companies that we have coverage on, ACC and Ambuja, and we have been maintaining our positive call on both these companies. See, the problem is, we know after the aftermath of Heidenberg report, once we had the clarity, once the authorities gave a little bit of more clarification, and the dust settled down, we saw the rebound in Adani Group companies. So I would possibly wait out rather than take a call today. As far as Ambuja and ACC is concerned, though we are maintaining hold on to it currently. If you want to add to it, possibly wait for some little bit of more clarity. But our stance is very, very clear that growth and long-term story of ACC and Ambuja remains intact.
Okay, Gaurang, I also wanted to just get a sense as far as the reactions post Hindenburg that were seen for Adani and the reactions that are being seen now. What is the difference between the things that we had seen unfold post Hindenburg for Adani Group and what could be expected now?
So this was a report earlier from an entity which we didn't know of, and which I personally still have a little bit of hunch in terms of how much of truth or how much of front running, and they themselves have said they had done some front running in terms of sell side position. Don't want to go into all those details. This is possibly, it may or may not develop into a legal case being fought out in the US court. I don't know how it is going to shape because the news is just wait for, like I said, some more clarity. I think overall we should get some more clarity, and next week we should be able to give a decisive comment in terms of what is the next step forward for Adani and what is the next step forward for the counterpart. Right now, it is just a knee-jerk reaction like we've seen earlier. So I would not read too much into it. The company has given clarification, Sakshi. I think we should just wait out for some more time.
Right. Gaurang, another space is that how GQG is going to be really reacting to this. GQG statements have come in, and they are indicating that they will be now evaluating the investments right there. Remember, it was GQG and Rajiv Jain's conviction within the Adani group that perhaps was being seen as a turnaround point after the aftermath of Hindenburg had played out in 2023. It was that vote of confidence that Rajiv Jain's GQG partners had put in that things started to look better, and most of the stocks also recovered. They had all the losses that they had faced post Hindenburg, in the interim right there. Do you think, all eyes will be on how they will be now reacting? 6 companies is what they are holding over 1% stake right there. If they evaluate this for the negative and if they start to pull out because they have made a lot of profits right there, do you see that? That is something that an investor should be really looking at for an indication?
Sakshi, whenever a large investor like GQG invests into company, they look at long-term growth story. One news flow, I think we should give fair advantage to both the parties to put their case forward. Why are we just looking at the US authorities, what they have done? I think we should give enough time to the Adani Group companies also to give their kind of clarification and counter clarification, whatever it is. So, instead of jumping onto a conclusion and taking a decision, I don't think it will be appropriate. That's what I'm saying, Sakshi. Wait it out, let some more clarification come through as to what was the circumstances under which they decided to withdraw that dollar-dominated to rest. So, jumping onto the conclusion is not going to be a fair kind of an approach in terms of your long-term investment.
Right. So, Gaurang, I wanted to understand, for those who've been holding on to their positions, should they be reacting in a panic right now? Would you ask them to hold on for today, tomorrow, and like you said, maybe things will get clearer next week when the developments happen, more statements come in? Indian officials, do you expect to hear from on this case as well? How would somebody who's been holding on through all this pain continue to have conviction?
So again, I will repeat myself. We don't have coverage on Adani Group companies other than ACC Ambuja. I won't be in a position to comment on the rest of the companies because we don't have coverage according to the regulation. I can't comment on buy, sell and hold, Sakshi. Let me say this. I'll again reiterate as far as ACC and Ambuja is concerned. Wait for clarity. We will also look into that because we are covering those 2 stocks, Sakshi. So it's an honest on us also to look into the details. And whether the Indian regulators also step into it is something we'll have to just wait out.
Right. Gaurang, another thing that I wanted to just understand from you is that, you did say that over the next week is when we will get enough and more clarity. How about the expansion plans of Adani? They had come out, in exhilarating statements, in tweets as well when Donald Trump had taken over and won the US elections, talking about their commitment towards big investments of $10 billion odd for infra and for renewable energy in the US as well. Will that be something which will also get under question?
I don't think so, Sakshi. It will be a matter of time. I don't think they will jump onto all sorts of decision-making process right now when things are still under the clarity process. So I will again repeat, let us wait out. We can't take decision on behalf of Adani Group companies about their investment. I think they have their wisdom enough, they have their thought process enough, they have their intelligence enough how to take it forward. So a matter of 12-hour or 24 hours news flow should not transform into 5-year, 10-year, 15-year kind of expansion and growth plan.
Okay, got that. What is it that you would be really looking forward to, Gaurang? What will assure you, post this development right there, to be continuing to hold on to the positions? Would it be Gautam Adani himself coming out and talking about things? Would it be Indian officials again looking at something that the politicians are also now picking up, especially the opposition parties, that they need a JPC,
I don't want to get into
inquire?
the political. I don't want to get into the political joker game over here. To be very honest, we all know last time during Hindenburg report, early morning I heard some Congress uh, party men and leaders coming and talking about it. I want to ask them a question. How do you know? How much do you know about this incident?
Yeah.
Do they have clarity? Do they have that wisdom to make that kind of a statement? I will beg to differ. So I'll again say this, that making it a political issue is not going to help. And as far as the Adani Group company is concerned, I think they will take time and come out with an appropriate explanation and justification.
Right. Gaurang, Adani Group has also withdrawn this
Sakshi, I
600
have to
million
go for
bonds.
another show, Sakshi.
Okay,
Sakshi,
okay,
I have
right
to go
there.
for
Thank
another
you
live.
so
I'm
much,
so sorry.
Gaurang,
Thank
for
you.
being with us on this show and for helping us out with your insights on the Adani Group right there. Okay, viewers, this is something that we are trying to help you understand various points of views of top market experts who've been looking at the Adani Group story and how these developments are really shaping up right now. Most of the experts have said, let the dust settle down. Do not any knee-jerk reaction if you're holding on to the stocks in your portfolio, or even if you're looking afresh. This is not the time. Let things play out clearly. There will be enough and more developments to really look at throughout the course of today, tomorrow, and then we again look at the weekend as well. Already we are seeing reactions across the Adani Group stocks. You are seeing double-digit fall across all the 10 listed stocks right there. 10%, 20% down circuits in many of these stocks right there being seen as well. And of course, statements officially coming in from Adani Green saying that they have decided to withdraw the $600 million bond sale right there. So the bond market and the stock market both are reacting sharply lower on the back of the US SEC. What we've also seen is that key investors like GQG and the stock that's listed in Sydney is down by over 21% right there. So that's also reacting sharply. This is despite statements coming in from GQG saying that they are now going to be evaluating the investments. Although Raghavendra did point out that we should be really looking this as an opportunity that GQG would further look at rather than an exit on that front too. But even Devin Choksi and Gaurang both have mentioned that we should not be paying too much attention right now and wait for the dust to settle before going on right there. The Nifty meanwhile is down by 23,003, is now down at 23,342, 176 points lower in trade as far as the Nifty is concerned. Let's look at the market right now too. Across the board, there are several sectors that are down. Let's look at the PSU banks. They are the ones that are down the maximum at this point in time. Remember, PSU banks are the ones that had loaned to the Adani Group for various of their projects right there. So those are also now really looking at this sharp downfall in trade right now, coming in on the back of these new statements that are coming in. And this is despite the fact that news also had come in yesterday that the government is planning minority stake sale in at least 4 PSU banks as per some of the news reports that were coming in. Now, despite all of those news flows, PSU banks are sharply lower in trade. Let's look at the key banks that are actually reeling under sharp pressure on the lower side within the PSU space. You have Bank of Baroda, Punjab National Bank, SBI, Canara Bank, Bank of India, Central Bank, UCO Bank, Union Bank, Bank of Maharashtra, all of them down anywhere between 2 to 5.5% odd in trade. Metals are now lower by 2%. You have the Nifty Next 50 that's down 2%. You have oil and gas down 1.5%, FMCG down over 1%, banks, infra, autos, small caps and mid caps also down in trade, sharply lower. Barring the IT and the pharma, rest all of the sectors that are down in trade. You have only a few stocks on the Nifty that are holding up. You have stocks like Trent, Power Grid, Ultratech Cement, Hindalco, Infosys, TCS, HCL Tech as some of the big winners, right? But sharp fall across Adani Group stocks. Adani Enterprises now down 15%. Let's look at Adani Enterprises and the chart on that front. Adani Ports, which is down 10% as well. So those are the two top laggards on the Nifty right now. But let's look at the chart. So a 15% downtake. This is the second lower circuit that has come in for Adani Enterprises. It was holding at 10% lower circuit for the first half an hour, and then you see another 15% down circuit now coming in, and Adani Ports now holding at that 10% lower circuit for this front. Adani Ports down 15%. Another one that you should be really looking at in the F&O space, Ambuja Cements, that's down over 15%, ACC that's down 12% nearly, and some of the other stocks like Virmar, Total Gas, Adani Green, Adani Energy Solutions also sharply lower in trade along with ACC, Ambuja, and you should also be looking at NDTV right there. What we'll do, viewers, we'll continue to monitor all of these stocks throughout the course of the day and get you various viewpoints, but Adani Group story is the top story to track throughout the course of the day, and we'll help you see all the parameters, all the 360-degree angles that you should be really looking at as far as the developments around Adani are concerned. 167 points lower at 23,351 for the Nifty right now.
What we've seen, this massive leap in numbers, what are the reasons for this significant surge in crypto numbers?
Thanks for having me here, Rajdeep. Well, if I could summarize in one statement, what's happened over the last year is regulatory clarity emerging in crypto. We've seen Bitcoin go from 30,000 last year this time to 90-odd thousand now today. And that's about a 300% change in the course of a year. And most of it is driven by just two events. The first event was broad investors to crypto, and as we stand today, there are more institutional investors who invest in the Bitcoin ETF as compared to the gold ETF, if we specifically talk about the black